Hey everyone, Brad here. I've got a Joust board set, including the linear power supply that I rebuilt for Brett. I'm going to go over it here with you real quick. So MPU, this is a Rev D, really clean looking MPU. Had a CR2032 battery on it with some jumpers here. I move it to the back. This has a CR, this is the 2450, so it's much larger than the CR2032 most people use. Has about 3 times the capacity. Coming back on the board here, we do have, I put in a tantalum for the soft start. This is a 22 microfarad axial. Originally was aluminum. We've got new electrolytics here for the filtering. -5, 12, and 5 volts coming in. On these Rev D boards, they added some inductors to comply with FCC, and these 3 here originally were vertically mounted. They're real flimsy and bend and break, so I pulled those off and put these horizontal rigid ones on. They really help out. I also put a 4.7 volt Zener diode in here, so this is for the low voltage shutdown. So basically what happens if the voltage drops below whatever threshold the Zener is, it pulls the CPU into reset. And originally this was like 3.6 volts. So if someone does run a switching power supply or something like that, it basically allows the CPU to keep running with the voltage way too low, and it'll corrupt your CMOS RAM, your settings and such. So that 4.7 really helps. This has linear, so it's not a big issue, but I do it on all the boards. New Molex headers as well. These have the square pins, considerably more surface area, and they're not oxidized like the old ones either. This board here, once I powered it up, did have a problem. It was just a bad RAM on row 1, position 1 was bad. I swapped it out with the exact same TI chip and got that back up and running well. I also pulled the decoders and CPU out and straighten the legs and clean them and all that. Back here on the ROM board, got a new 3M ribbon cable with 3M connector. I make these up. We've got 2 new electrolytic filter caps, Nichicon. We've got all new Molex headers as well. This board had a couple labels that were missing, so I have some reproductions that I made up. The color's pretty close. I think it looks better than it did. It's not perfect, but normally I do a full set of labels on it. I/O board, Molex headers new, filter cap, ribbon cable, all 3M new, cleaned up, straightened everything up, cleaned it up. Everything's running real solid over here. Back here, we've got, again, all the old parts in a bag here. Soundboard. Someone had recently gone through an arcade parts and repair cap kit put on here. So these 3 electrolytics here and the 2 down here were still good. So I did not change those. I did clean them up quite a bit. I put a tantalum in here. There's some decoupling caps, 3 of them. I put tantalums in. Those are 1 microfarad. We've got all new Molex headers down here. Put in a new bridge rectifier. The fuses were wrong that were in here. One was a 7 amp, one was a 5 amp. So I put 2 brand new glass 4 amp that originally called 4 on the drawing. Pulled the EEPROM out, cleaned the legs on that. I had this 7805 voltage regulator, gets new heatsink compound, as well as the TDA 2002 audio amplifier. So the soundboard's rock solid. Power supply, again, I was able to use a few components on this because it was recently gone through. I've got my new heatsink that I use on these. I actually buy these for something else, and I drill and tap them, and they work really well. They look very similar to the the large heatsink that they're right next to. We've got all new Molex headers with the square pins as well. This one still had the round ones. I put a 10-turn precision potentiometer here to adjust the 5 volts. I've got the green high-intensity LEDs on here. Everybody seems to like those. It cleaned up real nice. It's running great. And then on the heat sink back here, I did go through and put a new connector on, and I do put the polarizing key on, so you can't plug it in backwards. The original one did have a replaced connector, but didn't have the polarizing key, and it was cut from a longer connector, so I put a new one. Pulled both the transistors back here, the power transistors. This first one's for the 5 volt. The 3055 back here is for the 12 volts. Put new silicone pads underneath them, sill pads, and someone had put heat sink compound with those, so I cleaned that up. You don't really need the heat sink compound when you're using those. Tightened everything up real good, torqued it up. And I tend to test the power supplies. I did this first, and I have on my bench, I have a constant current dual channel DC load. So again, I put it in, I can do constant voltage or constant current, and I run them, typically these boards run on the 5 volts, about an amp and a half, and on the 12 volts, maybe a half amp, and I run them double. So I run 3 volts or 3 amps on the 5 volts and about an amp on the 12 volt for about 8 hours at least, and everything gets really hot, and it's a really good way to make sure you don't have any components that have some sort of factory defect or something. So if it makes it through that, these things tend to last a long time. So come over here, get set up, and we will boot the board. It was on just to have the lights on the power supply, but I'll go through a full boot up here. Again, that's the carpet or rug pattern, and basically what that is the board running a RAM test. It writes data and reads it back to all the RAM locations. And if that passes, it does a ROM check, and then if all that passes, it loads the actual game code up, which you see here. So it boots right into the game. Went into a track mode, so that tells us the battery's working, the CMOS is good, it's retaining all the settings. You can see here it goes to the normal track mode here. This is all the blitters on the board doing a lot of work to generate this screen. So I'll coin it up. Start. So you can see she's running real good. I'll drop into the diagnostics here real quick. ROM's good. No RAM errors. CMOS is good. Sound test. Then it just loops back around. Switch test. Tested all 18 inputs with the splat board. But I can show you here. Got left, right, flap 1, right coin, left coin. I do have some move left and right here, and all the inputs work great. Here's the grid lines to set your convergence: solid, red, green, blue. Again, most of these things are for setting up your monitor. A lot of people are using the TPG, the test pattern generators for this kind of stuff now. You have your bookkeeping data, and then where you go in and set your game settings and adjustments here. So, and then back to a track. So she's good to go. I just want to, it's been running most of the day. I finished it up this morning, I think. And so tomorrow, midday or so, it'll have at least 24 hours on all the boards. I'll shut it down, get everything boxed up, and coming back to you. Thanks. Thanks for watching.